Nice to see you all. For those that I have not met before, I'm Melissa Mckay, teacher, executive director at Inside LA. Oh, thanks, Gary. Uh, we're going to start chanting together the Refuges and Precepts. So you have, oh, hello, everybody online. You have the Refuges and Precepts on your chair. And I chanted in a particular way. It might be familiar, might not be familiar. Try to stay within the same way of chanting. It makes it sound better. And the way that we do this is that first part I say once, and then we'll chant it all together 3 times. And then it's call and response after that. And then we end by saying that last line together, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right. So you can get comfortable. Namo tassa. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll do that first one and then 3 times together afterward. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi sangam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi sangam saranam gacchami. Anatipata veramani sikhabadam samadhiyami adinadana veramani sikhabadam samadhiyami kamesumichachara veramani sikhabadam samadhiyami musawada veramani sikhabadam samadhiyami sura medaya Majapamadatana Vedamani Sikhabadam Samadhiyami Sadhu Sadhu, sadhu. So, oops, let's see. Can you hear? Okay. Yeah. So my name is Christiane Wolf, and I will lead us with a meditation. So we'll start with half an hour of meditation. So inviting you to just find a posture that is supportive for practice this morning. So starting the practice by just slowly bringing awareness from more outside oriented, looking around, to inside oriented. And as you do this, like for the practice, also being aware that we are practicing in community. So, probably one reason that you're here is because you know the difference between practicing by yourself at home and practicing in community. So I'm inviting you to just start to feel into that you're here, not alone, that you're here in community and with this shared intention of practicing together. And so finding your body in this room amongst all the other bodies of the other practitioners here. And for those of you online, just also seeing if you can kind of feel into this field of shared practice. Allowing the eyes to close if that feels comfortable, or simply lowering the gaze. And maybe starting by just allowing the breath to become a little bit longer and deeper, connecting with the felt sense of this body in this moment. And as you do this, see if you can welcome yourself completely to this moment. And in this first minute or so of the practice, you might be aware of tension that you're holding and maybe just seeing if there's anything you can let go of. And maybe checking the eyes, the jaw, the shoulders, the belly. And then gently landing on an anchor in your present moment awareness. For many of us, that will be the breath.
But it can also be another anchor, like the sensations in your hands or feet, or the soundscape around you. And then just letting the breath flow naturally. And see if you can find a resting place with your anchor. So the place you keep coming back to whenever the attention has wandered away. Just noticing where the attention is, and really give yourself permission to not have to follow the stories that are playing in your head. If it is helpful, you can say a friendly thank you, not now, and return to your anchor. And there's no obligation whatsoever to follow that train of thought. And again, noticing, where are you? Are you here? Are you in this room? And now for the last part of our practice, I'm inviting you to shift into a loving kindness practice. So you can do it your own way, or also just stay with your anchor, or you can follow my guidance. So for that, I'm inviting you to start and bring to mind a easy to love person or being. Just somebody who brings a smile to your face when you just think of them. And you can picture them or kind of just feel them, or however that works for you. And seeing if through that reflection you can connect with your care, your love for this being. And then maybe noticing how just out of this reflection and this tapping into your care, your love, like very naturally the wish or wishes arise for this being's happiness and safety and well-being. And you can just feel into that, or you can make it into words or phrases. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from pain and stress and suffering. May you be joyful and live with a peaceful heart. And now, maybe with your friend by your side, just see if you now can allow those same wishes for yourself. And here, sometimes it is helpful to place a hand on your chest or holding your own hand, just like as a physical gesture that this one here matters too. And this one here deserves to be happy and safe and peaceful. And if you're using a gesture, really see if you can allow just that intention of care, of kindness in. And then in whatever way works for you, you can offer the loving kindness wishes for yourself as the adult that you are today, or maybe for a younger you, picturing yourself as a child, or maybe even a baby. So worthy, so deserving of all the love and kindness in the world. So may I be happy, May I be safe. May I be free from pain and stress and suffering. May my heart be at peace. And now inviting you to open and become aware of all beings here in this room, our physical location here in Santa Monica. And for those of you online, wherever you are, all the people and beings that are where you are. So letting that loving kindness just radiate out, just like the warmth of your body radiates out naturally. So there's no extra effort needed. And letting yourself also feel the loving kindness coming to you from all of us. And then gently letting that loving kindness ripple out further into the world. This world so in need of love and kindness. And then we're slowly bringing this practice to an end. So just seeing what you need to do internally to close the meditation. Maybe starting to move the body a little bit as we're transitioning. Thank you for your practice.
How's this? Can you hear in back? There are also a couple of seats here in front. I know, Ellie, you were looking for one, and I don't know. Yeah, there's seats. Come on in. Come on in. Look, there's a seat over here if you want. Ellie, did you get a seat? And I'd start yawning, and she'd say, Honey, are you bored? I'm like, no, Mom, I'm tired. It's like being a CEO without any of the compensation. Um, anyway, Christiana joined shortly after that, and Joel and other old timers who are here, old timers of being at Inside LA. Although I've watched some of us, get our gray hair and become genuine old timers, right? Jack and I turned 80 this summer. This is Jack Kornfield. He's going to talk more than I am. Um, he said, always. Um, yeah, I just want to acknowledge Jack and I just came back from the Ram Dass Legacy Retreat that happens every uh, first week of December on Maui, where Ram Dass went and to heal and really stayed and lived there for the rest of his life. And Harvey was there. I don't know if anybody else here was there, um, but Ram Dass. I mean, he was a very famous spiritual figure that I became interested in him after he had his stroke. He was completely paralyzed on the right side of his body, including the right side of his throat, which sometimes made swallowing tricky. But he was somebody who took the really adverse circumstances of having to be in a wheelchair in pain for 20 plus years and turned them into, with the practice of awareness, of loving awareness that we just did today, he really turned those circumstances. He did what mindfulness allows us to do, which is it could flip the unfortunate circumstance into a determination to heal and to transform his pain into just that sense of purpose and dedication and love. And his love was really strong. It was palpable in the room. You could really feel it. And I asked him once what he did when he meditated. I did retreats where you could go in the little ohana, this little cottage that was right next to the house, and his caregivers would roll him over in his wheelchair, and then you could have some time to share your practice and sit together with him. And one day I just want to know, like, what do you do when you meditate? You never usually get to ask your teachers, like, what do you actually do when you meditate? And he said, what I do is I take my guru's blanket, his teacher in India named Karoli Baba, called Maharaji. I take his blanket and I wrap it around the household, and then I wrap it around the island, and then I wrap it around the earth, and then I wrap it around the cosmos and he just held it all in great love. And this morning, we woke up to the news of this Hanukkah shooting in Australia. And it's a really tricky time to be Jewish. It's a tricky time to be an immigrant. It's a tricky time to be black, brown, or a woman. It's a tricky time to be Muslim. It's a tricky time in our country. Um, I personally was recently targeted in an article called, American Jewish Buddhist teachers complicit in genocide. I mean, come on. We we loathe genocide anywhere that it happens. And how can we find a way to wrap our blanket of love around the people who are suffering, all the people who are suffering, including, Carrie Tribe, who was one of the people who was here from the beginning, one of the first few people in the Inside LA Sitting Group. Her son is a freshman at Brown, and one of his dear friends was just murdered in that shooting. And, these things, as I mention them to you, I get shivers. It's really, really scary. And yet, to not mention them and realize we can actually use our practice to hold these things when they happen, to hold the shivers, to hold the tears, to hold the anger, to hold everything that comes up when we realize what has happened to these kids, to the people, to people around the world. It's the Tibetan Buddhists call it oceans of suffering, that there are oceans of suffering in the world. And that's why it is such a blessing to come together like this and do practices that can heal our hearts and calm us down and give us the strength and the resilience to face what's going on in the world. And each of us, according to our particular gifts or talents or karmic affinities, will find some way to do something. Hi. Some way to do something, to be of benefit, to be helpful in this world. Um, this is a time of our holiday celebrations, and it's a time to, in the midst of the busyness, to use our practice to drop down under that busy surface of our everyday lives and ask ourselves, what is most important right now? What's most important to you right now in your life? What inspires you to go deep, to come here, to come to classes, to go to retreats, to find ways to support the unfolding of your heart? To me, going deep means looking at whatever holds me back from experiencing love and wisdom. Um, and for you, I don't know, sometimes I think of just doing this exercise where you're way up in the sky, maybe on a star, and looking down at your life with that loving kindness that Christiana was invoking this morning. Just looking down at your life from that perspective of vast compassion and tenderness and caring and love, and asking what does this being, you, me, life in the form of each one of us, need at this time to nurture our hearts and take good care of ourselves and allow ourselves to deepen in this practice. So I promised I wasn't going to talk very long, and that Jack would get to talk more. Um, because one of the, I don't know, you could call it an occupational hazard of this job, is you really get good at talking, and, and you can just press play. If you've done enough Dharma practice, you just press play and Dharma teachings come out. It's actually it's actually a great joy. And
See, is this okay here? Thank you, Christiana. Thank you, Trudy. Always. Thank you, Melissa. Just great to be back here. I've had the fortune of being here on Sunday mornings over the last decade or two. How many of you are new today to Inside LA, or here first time? How great. Really, what a pleasure to welcome. And those of you online who are new, welcome as well. Yeah, there's something, as you both pointed out, that is so helpful about practicing in community, about coming together. We need each other. both in beautiful times and in difficult times. And one of the great things about being at Ram Dass's ashram, the Hanuman temple, where you can go and practice on Maui, is that he has this giant altar that stretches across one side of the living room. And there are pictures of all the saints on it. There's Mother Teresa, and there's Mother Mary, and there's Kuan Yin, and there's Ramakrishna, and Ramana Maharshi, and Anandamaya Ma, and she's looking kind of beatific and blessing everyone. And there's Reb Zalman, and there's, all these great spiritual figures. And then in the middle, he puts the political figures, our president and others. They need to be wrapped in the blanket too. May they be peaceful. May they find love in their hearts. Nobody excluded. So, one of the things about this time of year, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, with the coming of the winter solstice, is that it's a natural time, an invitation to quiet the mind and tend the heart. And we live in a culture that, in some way, the speed and the way it's gotten organized, that could almost be described as the absence of the sacred, right? Everything else keeps us busy. And there are cultures and places where I've been and lived where things are really taken in a sacred manner. Whatever it is, living in Bali, as I have over some years, everything is kind of ritualized, almost everything. I'm in this car with our driver. He has a new Suzuki Kijang fancy car, and we're going down through one of these um, jungle places and then coming out to a road, and he honks his horn. Of course, if you've been in India, everybody honks their horn all the time. But anyway, and I said, why are you honking your horn? Is it like you have a new car, right? And he said, no, I'm letting the gods know I'm about to cross the highway and asking that they be with me to protect everybody. And everything in that way is sacralized. So one of the things that quieting the mind, tending the heart does is it invites us to see anew, to see with the eyes of kindness, as both Christiana and Trudy evoked, eyes of tenderness, but also to see the mystery of it, to look around. Mary Oliver's line, I was a bride married to amazement, right? And take a look around. These people are weird. I mean, be honest, you know. How did the universe make this one and that one? And they've never been made exactly like that one before. So many, and they're really strange. Some have fur, some don't, right? Or they have fur in other places, right? They have different colors. I mean, the whole thing is really bizarre. How did you get in there? And who are you? And what matters? So it invites a sense of mystery. And the word solstice, sol is the sun, and stis means the sun stands still. It's like the universe takes a sacred pause. Our practice invites us to take a sacred pause, especially when things are difficult, just to pause and take a breath. But now the cosmos, or certainly the earth and its orbit, and it has a kind of timeless quality when we stop. And then we can do what Trudy was inviting us to begin to reflect. What really matters? What's calling our attention? What's calling our care? I remember teaching with Stephen Levine years ago, who was a wonderful teacher and did a lot of work also with hospice and people who were facing cancer and dying. And we'd be together in big rooms and talk about things. And then he would say, if you only had a day or two left to live, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? To live with that sense of sacred and to take that kind of care. It's also an invitation in this timelessness to stepping back, what matters, to see not just the mystery, but some joy in it. Yeah, there's ocean of tears, but there's also the unbearable beauty of looking in the eyes of somebody that you care about, or seeing the way the world renews itself, which it does, no matter how we screw up as a species. That's a polite way of saying it, right? We F up all these ways. But there is, and this is part of the archetype of the child of the Spirit who's born in Christmas Day, but it's really the child of the Spirit in everybody. We are that child of the Spirit. Um, to see with new eyes, to see with joy, to say, wow, amazing, here we are. Now what beautiful thing can we do? Sharon Salzberg, dear friend, colleague, was in India. She'd been practicing for a year or two, and she was a killer yogi. She was like this she had a tremendous amount of suffering and trauma in her life. And when she got to meditation, she just dropped very, very deep. Anyway, so she'd been practicing a year or two, and this was early 70s. And somebody said, here's this new Zen book that came out called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. He gave her a copy of it. She looked at it and she said, I'm not a beginner, and tossed it aside. You know how we are, right? We think we know something. Later on, she picked it up and read that famous preface that said, the goal of meditation, the goal of meditation is always to keep your beginner's mind, to live fresh here in this moment. And he said, oh, I missed the point, right? But this is the invitation in some really deep way. And it's why we light candles in the solstice. It's not just that it's dark, but it's to remember that we can see in the dark. In the darkness, there's something more than just darkness. It's woven together. And that we add our divine spark to it, that we don't forget it. So we meditate, quiet the mind, open the heart with love. And don't think that because the world is as messed up as it is, which it is, that your spark doesn't make a difference. We need it. We need your love. We need your spark. We need your vision. We need your hands. Tell me the weight of a snowflake. A tiny bird asked a wild dove. Nothing more than nothing was the answer. In that case, I must tell you a marvelous story, said this tiny bird. I sat on the branch of a fir tree, close to its trunk when it began to snow. Not heavily, not in a raging blizzard, no, just like in a dream, without a sound, without any violence. You've been in that kind of snowstorm, you know. Since I didn't have anything better to do, I counted the snowflakes settling on the twigs and needles of my branch. Their number was exactly 3,741,952. When the 3,741,953rd snowflake dropped onto the branch, nothing more than nothing, as you say, the branch broke off. Having said that, this little bird flew off, and the dove, who listened deeply since Noah's time, thought about the story and finally said, perhaps there's only one person's voice lacking for peace to come about in this world. When I lived in the monastery with my teacher Ajahn Chah, we were in a forest monastery starting back in the 1960s, if you can believe it, middle of the last century, whatever. And we were in the border province of Laos and Cambodia during that war. There's always the wars going on somewhere, but then so there were bombers and jets flying overhead and so forth, and we'd get visitors, including soldiers and so forth. And sometimes, and peace activists, you've got to get out there, you've got to do something, you have to stop the war, which is a very good thing. And I get out there and do what I can. But Ajahn Chah said, the place we have to stop the war is in here. This is where it starts. No amount of AI and technology and computers and space technology and nanotechnology and biotechnology is going to stop continuing war, continuing racism, continuing climate destruction. Because where does it start? It starts here. He said, so our monastery is a temple of peace. And you walked into this hundreds of acres of jungle and forest. It was so peaceful and quiet. The paths were swept every day by the monks and nuns, and you were greeted with this beautiful kind of gesture and cared for. And he said, we want to remind people, even when the wars come and go around us, that there's another way to be, that there's another way to live, which is partly what Inside LA is. It's a sanctuary of peace. Not because it's quiet and there's the Buddha up here and the wooden one and then the live ones up in front as well and so forth. And then all of you Buddhas, exactly. But really because the invitation of our hearts to remember what's possible. And so we become that, we come together in this way. And then you look around and you say, what is there to be tended? What, as Trudy said, what is your gift to bring to the world? My friend Malidoma Somé, who was a West African shaman and medicine man, who also had a couple of PhDs from the Sorbonne and, Michigan or something like that. But he was basically a medicine man. He said, among the Dagara people, which was his people, he said, we believe that each child who comes in is born with a certain cargo. And their task on this earth is to deliver that cargo of goodness. I love the metaphor because there are these long rivers in West Africa that go from the ocean inland and probably for thousands of years in dugout canoes at first and other boats. The cargoes have sort of traveled up and down the rivers. And then he would look when we would teach together and say, what is your gift? What is it that you have to deliver to this world? That you're here in this, amazing incarnation that you have to offer. What's calling to be lit during this time in your heart? What's calling to be born? Because when you go into the dark, then you come out of it. Something new gets born, and it always does. Always, always, always. There just isn't, okay, this is the end of the story, the end, right? But then the lights come on and you have to do the next story, right? Unless you go to a double feature and then you've got all that, right? This is a multiple feature. What's calling? What wants to get born if you quiet yourself and listen? What wants to be tended? And the beautiful thing is you don't have to do everything. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all, the Zen chant. And then you go home. Do the people in your family want to be saved by you? I don't think so, right? So it has to mean something different than that. And what it means is not that you go out and save, but that your loving presence, like Ram Dass's blanket, your life becomes that beauty, that love, that life. And then you reach out and touch the fabric of life where you can mend it. Not all of it, but you can touch a part that you can mend. And you know it in your family, in your community, in the, in tending the natural world around in the society. There's plenty of places to mend, baby, and you touch what you can. That's your gift here. And this is from Howard Thurman, who was such a great poet and sage. It's called The Work of Christmas Year Round. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas year round begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, to make music in the heart. So I'm so grateful that we get to come and sit together and take this kind of sacred pause with one another. Thank you. You want this back? Okay.
Thank you, Jack. This is a time where we have a chance to have some dialogue with you and also with you online people. Somebody will, I think, be monitoring if you have anything you'd like to share. So it could be a question about your practice, something very practical and concrete about your meditation or just your mindfulness, loving kindness practice in general, or just something that you feel moved to share. And we will pass. Is there another mic or is this one? Okay. Yeah, so just raise your hand and James will come to you.